Hey GH fans out there, welcome to GH, the Meat and the Sweet podcast. Today we're going to be covering season 56, episode 186, which we're calling A Small World. We're your hosts, Ben
and Betty,
and we're going to be giving you all the meat
and the sweet
on everything happening in Port Charles. So let's jump right in.
Okay, the episode starts with an interesting title montage of sorts. Which we normally don't see, so that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, we see our favorite recurring character, Lucy, and she's in a bit of a quandary there at the beginning, eh?
Yes, the titles are 1 year ago and then 1 year, 1 day ago. And so apparently back then, Lucy was visiting with people after looking at a past due bill. So maybe she's hard up for some cash, perhaps.
Yeah,
maybe the real estate industry isn't doing so well because that's what she does do. She sells real estate.
There was a negative balance on the sheet that she was looking at, and she looks worried.
And so she's been visiting people, asking them to support her idea of rebranding Port Charles.
I think the rebranding of Port Charles is kind of interesting considering the overarching storyline right now of the serial killer that news is about to break. So I thought that was interesting timing that now they're going to continue to try to rebrand Port Charles, and then this bombshell is about to hit the city.
Right. So she's visited several people, Maxie, Sunny, Monica, Scott, and Sunny, all of which have basically told her they don't have the money for that right now, blah, blah, blah. She goes back to Sunny, and he eventually says yes. And so he invested in her project. And so we fast forward to present day. She sits down, chats with Maxie, and tells her that she did publish a book. Her book is called Port Charles. And she's hoping that Maxie can use her job connection there at the magazine,
Crimson,
to help her promote it. Just like they did back when they were promoting the book with her husband at the time. What was it called?
Well, that was back when they were promoting the book.
Ask Man Landers.
Ask Man Landers.
There you go.
Love that storyline. I thought that was a great storyline. And we'll actually be seeing a character that was heavily involved in that storyline a little bit later on in the episode.
Amy's brother.
And just to say one quick thing about our character, Lucy, one of the things that I like about her is she really doesn't have a lot in terms of ammunition to get people to help her, except her persistence. And so she tells Sunny, she's asking, and basically he's like, if I give you the money, will you leave me alone? And so that basically fundraises or, funds her entire endeavor. And I thought that was a neat little character piece for that Lucy character.
Awesome. And we know she does the same thing when she's trying to recruit people for the nurses' ball.
Oh, yeah. We've seen it before.
Which is
That's her
the
style.
Main General Hospital event of the year.
For
right?
sure.
Every year.
Oh, yeah. Love it.
So Maxie kind of agrees, says she'll work on it, but she is in a hurry to get out of there because she has a very important self-defense class to get to.
Love it. So with a killer out on the loose, the best way to avoid being murdered in Port Charles, take a self-defense class. We'll see where that goes. I'm pretty sure it's going to be quite the fun scene of actors pretending to, learn how to fight. Speaking of fighting, there was a little bit of that later on in the episode as well, which I thought was pretty cool.
And we'll get to that in just a minute. But before we leave that encounter there, Lucy also happens to see Scott Baldwin chatting with Monica Quartermain there at Charlie's Pub as well. Lucy notices that Scott looks a bit frail, bothered, perhaps sad.
Yeah. Just before in the episode, he goes to Monica in the hospital, says something's happened. She says that she has to take off from the hospital and she won't be able to be reached all day. And we find them here in Charlie's pub conveniently, where most of the episode takes place. And so she's looking on, kind of worried, I think, right? So what happens in that convo there? She
walks over, sits down, chats with them, and finds out that Gail Baldwin has passed away.
So this is a little further than I started watching General Hospital because it was before I was alive, I think, or just a small kid. This character, Gail Baldwin, heavily involved with the GH storyline and, hundreds and hundreds of episodes for very many years, was an integral part of the whole Monica Quartermain storyline, the whole Scott Baldwin and his dad Lee Baldwin, right? And so the actress Susan Brown, which gets a R.I.P. Title at the end of the episode, did in fact pass away back in September of 2018. So it's interesting to see how they're taking the real life death of one of their actors and writing it into the story. So that's what they were talking about, how sad they were that she's gone.
Yeah, so it was a touching homage. Although short, it was nice to see.
My favorite thing, honestly, if I made a list that GH is able to do, is pull from so much history and be able to show us in literal flashbacks of episodes that have aired, dozens and dozens of years ago of the actors who they're talking about. So yeah, they did that a couple times, which I thought was really cool, and appreciate that history, that depth of history that they have to offer us.
And that's also why we decided to include in our own podcast intro the music that spans all the different generations of General Hospital seasons.
Yeah, for sure. One of the best things about GH is that, if you haven't watched in years, months, or whatever, you can just jump right in. And, that's kind of why we say that at the start of the show, because let's just see what's happening in Port Charles.
And before we leave this nugget of the story with Lucy, Scott, Monica, we also want to mention that Alexis was also there at Charlie's Pub to meet with them, to let them know what was in Gail's will.
Yeah,
correct?
So Scott says that Gail had hired, what's her name? Alexis to be her lawyer and amended the will after Lee died. And she drops essentially a big bombshell on them, saying that she needs to meet with them three and many others. So now there's something in that will that we're going to have to see play out here in Port Charles.
Okay, and so another setting for the day, for the episode, was at Sunny's gym.
Yeah, Sunny's gym. I love the scene. I love the set, the boxing ring, people working out, stuff like that. There's a couple things are happening here at the boxing gym. So which one do we want to start with?
And right away, we have a quick question for our followers, fellow GH fans. We'll be posting on our Twitter some fun facts, articles, things like that. And we'll also have questions. And if you can answer our questions correctly, we want to give you a shout out on the podcast. And so one of our little questions, fun fact questions is, do you know what Sunny's gym is called? Because you definitely see it on today's episode.
Yeah, you don't really hear it. It's primarily referred to, as far as I can tell, as Sunny's gym, one of the many businesses he has. And here we're asking, what's the name of the gym? So hit us up on Twitter, give us the answer, and we'll give you a shout out on our next episode. Let us know what you think it's called.
And so Sunny and Mike are at the gym, and Sunny is basically trying to help his dad through the ups and downs of Alzheimer's. And he also is concerned with his father's recent obsession with a new friend at the assisted living center. And that friend is Yvonne, who happens to be married, and her husband visits her every day and is concerned for her. And he doesn't like the fact that Mike is overstepping their boundaries, the marriage boundaries.
For sure.
I mean, Mike did take her off the premises, and she is not allowed to leave the premises. And so her husband was going to press charges.
Yeah, he's rightfully concerned. Mike, for those of us who have been keeping up with the show, we're really going on this journey with him, the ups and downs of what's happening with the Mike character. And Sunny, I like the fact that, exercise, trying to keep his body, vital as he's working through the disease, I thought was a good way. I know the actor Maurice Bernard, who plays Sunny, I don't know this for a fact, but I know in the previous story arcs with like Morgan and stuff, he likes to take important, elements that are happening in his own life in terms of health and put them within the storyline. So I can sense here that, the Maurice Bernard, the actor, may have some input in terms of trying to cover something pretty heavy in his storyline. So I like that they're actually trying to incorporate, some realism, as it were, into, like we said yesterday, such a fantastical storyline element.
Well, you know that the Sunny character has bipolar. That's
right.
Bipolarism. That's what his son Morgan had.
Yeah, and that
But
weighed
did you
heavily
know
on
that the real actor, Maurice Bernard, that he himself has had battles with his own, I believe bipolar. I think he has
it was
bipolar in real life.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happened. Exactly right. And that's why I'm saying that he's taken, I'm assuming, I haven't read an article about this, taking elements from his own life like he did with his own bipolar. Maybe he's had a family member afflicted with Alzheimer's and he's trying to provide like a realistic sense of how that, disease affects people. And, it stalls a little bit. The storyline is kind of like, all right, are we going to go anywhere with this? So I like the fact that they're actually giving Mike something to do with this new Yvonne character. So can you elaborate a little bit on what's happening there?
Yes, so they're at the gym, and obviously Sonny's trying to help his dad, and his dad right now is very concerned and preoccupied, I would say, about Yvonne, wondering if she liked her Christmas gift, wondering how she did over the holiday, and Sonny's trying to keep him focused. And it's really cool that they bump into Amy's brother, Chet, right? Chet. Oh, okay. And he introduces himself and he chats with Mike a bit and is able to get him to focus on something else.
Yeah, he tells a really cool story. We only get the tail end of it where there was something happening in the Army barracks back when he was, in the service. Mike was in the service, and a funny little story that, makes them laugh. And it was really cool to see that whole interaction with the Chet character. Chet, being nice and kind and listening to what Mike is saying. But like you said, Mike's a little preoccupied and wants to get out of there. And so he excuses himself from the conversation, and Sonny, has a quick chat with Chet.
Chat with Chet. And Sonny thinks he can see clearly how his dad responded well to speaking with Chet, and can see that Chet has had probably some good experience with physical therapy.
Yeah.
And emotional therapy as well, if he was a veteran from the war.
Right.
And so he decides to.
So this brings me to my favorite segment of the show, the sweet, as I'm going to call it, Sonny moment of the show. So check out this line. I really dug this from Maurice Bernard.
Listen, I own this place. I'm looking for a manager who's knowledgeable and discreet. You interested?
I love the fact that he says discreet. So he offers Chet a job. He says, I need someone to be running this gym. Are you interested? So not only is that going to keep Chet in Port Charles with his sister Amy, but it's going to give him something to do now, as opposed to just being, like the sentimental character that he's kind of been because of the service that he's done for the country and, giving up limbs of his own body in the service of this nation, that now his character is actually going to have something to do. So that's my sweet, Sonny moment of the show.
And Chet does mention it to his probably closest friend in Port Charles here, Maxie.
Yeah, Maxie comes by to the gym because he texts her and says, hey, I got big news. And he lays it on her and says, hey, Sonny just offered me the job to manage this place. And what does Maxie say?
Well, she just warns him, based on Sonny's other businesses, that he should not take him up on any other offers other than this. So if he gives him an offer to work at his coffee warehouse, to decline.
Yeah, so even Maxie, in the nicest terms possible, she says, well, Sonny does have a good side, but if he offers you a job to work at the coffee warehouse, say no. So good for Chet. Thanks, writers, for giving us some meat there as well.
And later on in the episode, Mike and Sonny meet up with Stella, and Stella lets them know that Marcus has decided to take his wife Yvonne from the center and take care of her himself 100%.
Yeah, that doesn't sit well with Mike. Mike seems to lose it for a minute, and Sonny says, let me go to the assisted living facility, let me go talk to the husband, and let me see what this is all about. So,
and of course, as soon as Sonny walks into the center, who's the first person he sees? Marcus is right there waiting for him to chat about something.
Yeah, they're always the amount of conveniences that happen in the world of
It's
Port
a small
Charles,
world, small world.
are quite convenient to say the least. So that's the bubble that we live in there with them.
Okay, and real quick, we also want to mention what happened at the hospital. Kim bumps into Elizabeth, and Elizabeth notices that she's down, so they get into the conversation. Kim lets her know that Julian has broken up with her. Yay!
That's fun. We like that. It happened on yesterday's show. She's back at the hospital, and I forget that she works at the hospital, right? So she's like behind the counter. She has like a book open or something. She's reading and doing some stuff. And I'm just like, yo, why is she just standing around? It's like, oh yeah, well, she works there. So the Elizabeth character comes up. They have a convo.
Of course, Elizabeth gives her the obligatory, you go, girl. He's lucky to have you. You're the best he could ever do.
You think he could do better without you? Yada, yada, yada.
But Kim does admit that there is a reason that it's because Julian did see her kissing
Drew. Kiss. So there's a cool little simultaneous cross-cutting between her and her convo with Elizabeth and Drew's convo with Curtis, and they're at the gym. So we have another scene at the gym, and they're working out, they're boxing, and basically Drew, through the convo that they're having, tells Curtis that he in fact did kiss Kim on New Year's, and so that kind of is his way of kind of saying what's happening. But that's not the most important part, I think, in that conversation. What happened just before that, but they're getting ready to work out. Do you remember?
Well, real quick, Julian is at Charlie's pub because he works there. It's his place.
Yeah.
And he does mention to Alexis that they broke up.
Yeah.
So she tries to give him a little bit of hope that if the two of them can still be friends, then there might be hope with him and Kim. But back to Drew and Curtis. Drew also mentions to Curtis that he spoke with Hank.
Yes.
That blast from the past that he had just 2 days ago, conversation with him.
Yep.
And Curtis offers to investigate. So we might see him looking into who Hank really is.
Yeah, so I really like that. Real subtle. They're getting ready to start the workout. And what does Drew do? Mentions that he talked to this guy, and Curtis says, you want me to check him out? And he says, yeah, I'd appreciate that. So that's a little nugget again. It's going to kind of evolve, I think, into something bigger. That scene was pretty basic. Drew telling Curtis what happened, and them kind of ribbing each other about what Drew's eventually going to be doing with that new development in his relationship with Oscar's mom.
And so, based from yesterday, we know that Hank character actually has another name, Shiloh.
Yep.
And if you recall, Sam and Jason decided to take up Christina on her offer to go check out that new place that she's going to be staying at. And as soon as they walk in, boom, they bump into Shiloh.
Yeah. So he's the manager of the house, the owner of the house, and it's a cool little scene. That's where we get the title of the episode, Small World, because Christina introduces Shiloh to her sister Sam and Jason.
And the first thing Jason says is,
"You're a liar," or "You're lying."
I know he's lying.
Yeah, and so they're not on the same page at all.
So Shiloh clears up that yes, he was indeed Hank before his transformation, evolution, his betterment, his self-improvement. He used to be Hank, but now he calls himself Shiloh.
Right. So through the evolution of the change that he had talked to Drew about yesterday after his life was saved in the firefight has led him to evolve or change into the character Shiloh, which is...
And when he says that he has a new life, new name, the camera zooms in on Sam.
Why?
Because we know she has a past, a shady past.
Yeah, so of course, we know these characters. We've been with them
Some
for
of these
years.
characters that we are all supposed to believe are good people, they all have past.
Yeah.
And she used to take advantage of older, rich men, and we're supposed to think that that's a good thing because she says that they were bad.
Right. And not only that, I like the fact that they say that she's a changed woman and stuff, or he's a changed man, and they zoom in on her to signify, well, maybe there is room for change, right? But we constantly see...
he's somehow connected to the drama that is occurring right now with Sam and her past coming back.
Oh, okay, yeah. There's a lot to this character here, Shiloh, I think. And So basically, they give him the third degree, talking to him about where he's got his money, how are they financing this house, how does this whole thing come about, and he basically says, Shiloh does, that he's a self-help coach, he's a life coach, and that's how he funds the house, which we today learn is called
Dawn of Day.
Dawn of Day.
And in that conversation where Sam is acting bitchy, and Christina even calls her out on it. She's like, "What a bitch!"
Yeah, she said, "Why do you gotta be such a?" And I was like,
and so
whoa.
Christina storms off, and Shiloh decides that this is a conversation that they need to continue, but at another time. Sam agrees, storms off. Jason then hands back Shiloh his book, and Shiloh says,
"Yeah, we didn't get to the fact that Shiloh says that he's written a book, a self-help book. It's kind of like a examination of the human condition, and he calls it, a way for him to get all his past deeds out in a way that can help other people." And he says that Christina says, "Sam, you should really read that." And Jason holds the book and hands it back to him, and he says, "Keep it." And then there's a really cool scene there at the end where our new character Shiloh says, "I hope to see you again," and Jason says, "You will."
And then back at Sam's, she tells Jason that she doesn't trust Shiloh at all, and so it's an indication that she will also probably be looking into him. So now we have Curtis looking into Hank, Jason and Sam looking into Shiloh and Dawn of Day.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah, a lot of good info here on this week's episode, or today's episode. I want to thank the writers for doing a really cool job on that. Just a little bit of some background. We want to give you guys, some FYI on who are these people, like the actual actors. So Hank, also known as Shiloh, who we're still getting to know and has a little bit of a shady past, is an actor by the name of Kobe Ryan McLaughlin. Good-looking fellow, like him a lot. Checked him out on IMDb, and courtesy of IMDb, fun fact, his first acting stint, or his first credit on IMDb, is from one of our favorite shows, The X-Files, back from 1999, where he played a young agent in that episode. So that's a really cool fun fact. I'm going to have to go back into my X-Files library and pull that episode out so we can check it out and see a young Kobe Ryan McLaughlin before he meets us today in Port Charles.
Yeah, General Hospital is definitely adding meat upon meat to their General Hospital cast.
Yes, that's true. That's true. So our last fun fact for the day, guys, we're just after New Year's. One of my favorite things about New Year's, or I should say one of my least favorite things about New Year's, as it were, is Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve with Ryan Seacrest. Not the parts in New York. Those are fine, whatever. But when they cut away to the studio segments where they have artists singing on stage and they're like talking about, or they're singing in front of all these hipsters dancing and stuff like that. Well, that segment of that show is recorded at the same studios, Prospect Studios, that General Hospital is filmed at. So ABC Studios owns the Prospect Studio in Los Angeles. They do that because, of course, the Dick Clark Show is part of that network, and it happens all within the same building. So I thought that was a neat little fun fact. I was doing some research yesterday, came across that, and I said, hey, this is my least favorite part of that show, and it's recorded at the place where my favorite show happens. So it just goes to show these studios are churning out a lot of content for us.
And we'll be posting that article with photos and more info on Twitter as well for you guys to check out.
Yeah, it was an older behind-the-scenes kind of deal, and it was talking a little bit about the ABC affiliate down there in Prospect Studio, and I looked up on the Wikipedia page, and a lot of fun times.
So please continue to follow us on YouTube so you can listen to more podcasts coming up.
For sure.
Also follow us on Twitter so that you can read all these fun facts about different articles of what's happening with the actors, the characters, the storylines, the sets, the settings, how they produce certain things.
Yeah.
Anything that's newsworthy or just fun facts, we'll be posting on there. And hopefully you'll get a chance to read about it and give us your comments, likes, dislikes, and let us know. Let's chat about GH.
So how do we get there?
Well, on Twitter, follow us at GH_Meat and Sweet.
That's right. And the YouTube channel is called The Meat and the Sweet. You find our link on Twitter to that page. Go ahead and check out the video. Hopefully it's a good companion to watching the show. I love it. Betty loves it. And it's just a neat way to kind of share our ideas and thoughts about the show. And
remember, we want to know if any of you caught what Sunny's Jim's name is.
Yeah, let us know.
That way we can give you a shout out on the next episode.
Heck yeah. All right. So that's going to wrap up today's episode. We call today's episode It's a Small World because that's what Shiloh says to Sam and Jason, and we thought it was apropos for the world of Port Charles. So we'll be signing off. My name is Ben.
And Betty.
And this has been The Meat
And the Sweet.
Well, guys, we'll check you later. Bye-bye.